All right, guys. So in Mediaite, they have this article here, and I'm going to play the video for you in a second. Fox business anchor all but begs Trump to stop pushing toxic stolen election claims during interview. People don't want you to do that. This is so awkward and so sad for so many reasons. But you're going to see in real time the inability of figures on the right, prominent figures on the right, to push back on Donald Trump and what happens as a direct result of that. So let's take a look at the video.
President Donald Trump, who joins us now by phone. Mr. President, may we start with the primaries, please, in Georgia?
Yes, absolutely.
I know you want to. In the governor's race, you backed David Perdue against Brian Kemp. Perdue is way behind. Looks like you're losing that race, Mr. President.
Well, we've won just about every race, and a lot of them were way behind. J.D. Vance was...
That's not true. When he says, oh, we've won just about every race, that's not true. Our last election breakdown, we put up for you what happened with the candidates on that night, and he won maybe 6 of them and lost 3 of them, something like that on that night. So, you know, when you look at the totality of all of his endorsed candidates, maybe like he won 65% of his races, which is good. But of course, in typical Trump fashion, he overstates everything and ends up functionally lying about it. He's going to give a fake number here in a little bit.
Way behind, and all of a sudden, shockingly to people, he ended up winning. Did a great job. If you look at Ted Budd in North Carolina, he was at 5%. He ended up winning in a landslide. He's fantastic. He won last week in a landslide, North Carolina, Ted Budd. And he's going to go on. I think they're both going to go on to be great senators. And so many others. Herschel Walker I backed, and I think Herschel's going to get... Herschel, I was the one responsible for getting Herschel to do it. I think Herschel's going to get 80 or 85% of the vote today against a number of candidates. So, you know, we've had I think it's something like 87, if you add them up, 87 and 3. We've had a tremendous run, and we're going to see whether or not this turns out to be true here. Okay. David Perdue's a very good man, and as you know, Brian Kemp did a very poor job on election integrity. And we'll see what that means to the voters. I will say this: a tremendous crowd. They've never had this number of people for this comparable event in the past.
Well, what I hear from a lot of Republicans.
So Trump holding on to hope there that Perdue was able to pull it out. Not only did Kemp beat Perdue, he's up by about 50 points. 50 points. So Perdue got draxed on another level, son.
Republicans is that they don't want you to look back to the 2020 election and rehash it. They want to look forward to what we're going to do with this economy and this society going forward. What do you say to that?
Well, I do that, but if you don't study what happened and if you don't find out, we know what happened. All you have to do is see 2,000 mules or go on Truth. Take a look at Truth. You should someday talk.
He just plugged Dinesh D'Souza's hilariously stupid movie where he tries to pretend the election was stolen, and his evidence for it is preposterous. Crystal Ball did a great monologue on that on Breaking Points, just rips to shreds Dinesh D'Souza's entire movie. The whole thing is fraudulent. And by the way, it's peak irony that a guy who was guilty of election fraud is making a movie about how the Democrats did election fraud. I mean, come on, man, come on.
Talk about Truth as a business thing. It's hot as a pistol.
That's not what people are talking about. People don't want you to do that.
No, I think that you have to look back to find out. You have to look at history, Stuart. If you don't look at history, you're going to be lost. It's going to happen again. You can't let it happen again. You have to study. And I know you say that, but there's a vast portion of the Republican Party that disagrees with that.
That's not true. That's not true. We've covered the polls on it. It was something, I was even shocked by the number of Republicans who want him to keep talking about 2020. It was so tiny. I mean, yes, in some polls it's like over 50% that think there was some fishy stuff going on with that election. But even given that, it's a minority of Republican voters who want him to keep talking about 2020. So Stewart is unquestionably correct that everybody's like, move on, move on, move on. But it's going to get even sadder in a second. Watch.
Very upset about it. They're very angry with what happened in the election. You take a look at the results. I mean, every one of these states, every one of these swing states and beyond, but every one of these swing states is proven. The evidence is so massive. The problem is the press, including Fox, doesn't want to talk about it.
Okay. Mike Pence says...
You don't want it to happen again, Stuart, is what I'm saying.
But
you can't let it happen again. And they have to study it. They have to study it, and they have to come out and do something.
Oh, but... Stuart Varney... See, he's in a bind because he's pro-Republican and he's pro-Trump. But he does want him to move past this issue, and he doesn't want... Stuart Varney knows the election wasn't stolen. He knows it wasn't stolen. But he can't bring himself to just keep it real with Trump on this and be like, you're 100% wrong. The election wasn't stolen. There were over 60 court cases. You lost almost every single one of them. Even judges appointed by you ruled against you. All the evidence was looked at. We had the Arizona audit where Biden won by more than we thought he won by election day. Like, it's over. It's over. It's over. You're not correct when you talk about this. You are wrong. And you're petty, and you're narcissistic, and you're going to blow up your chance at winning again if you keep talking about this. Stewart cannot keep it real and tell him that because he knows Trump is thin-skinned, and then Trump would turn on Stewart and, he'd start lobbing bombs at him in some official presidential, note that he releases. So he's trying to, tap dance around it, but then you get these awkward moments where he's like, but Mr. President, please, don't be so rude. Oh, so sad. Here, I'll run it back a touch.
But you can't let it happen again, and they have to study it. They have to study it, and they have to come out and do something. I'm getting the sense that
voters just don't want to go back to a chaotic situation or a toxic situation or a really, a negative situation. They want to be positive. They want to look forward to the future and be positive.
So somebody robs the jewelry store of all the jewelry, you should just let him be alone, right? Just say, okay, he got away with it. I disagree with that, and a lot of people in the party disagree with that, Stuart.
And that's why this mealy-mouthed, pussyfoot-around-it approach that Stuart Varney is taking is never going to work to push Trump off that. Because what Trump's saying makes sense there. He's like, well, wait a second. If the jewelry store is saying, if somebody robs from the jewelry store, then what, are you just going to let him go? No, a crime was committed, and you have to bring about justice. He's right on that front. If somebody commits grand larceny, you don't just let him go and say, we look forwards and not backwards. So, but see, the problem here is, Don, nobody robbed the jewelry store. Nobody robbed the jewelry store. And in fact, you want to lock up somebody innocently. That's the problem. But Stuart Varney can't say that. Because if he says that, Trump is going to view him as an enemy. This is how Trump has cucked every, high-level Republican. He's cucked them into the strongest position you can take against him is disagreeing on strategy. The strongest position you could take against him is, look, I kind of agree with you on the substance, but strategically we should move on because this isn't selling well. That's the strongest position that he will allow you to take against him and still not view you as an enemy. If Stewart keeps it real here and says, hey, Don, nobody robbed the grocery store or nobody robbed the jewelry store. Sorry, nobody robbed it. And you're going after the wrong guy. You're the corrupt cop who wants to lock somebody up unfairly. If he says that, Trump flips at him, so he doesn't say it. So you can see how this trying to talk Trump down off the ledge thing is never going to work. Now, don't get me wrong, it's never going to work if you address it head on either, but at least if you address it head on, you're being intellectually honest. Because Stuart Varney knows the election wasn't stolen, and so he's just being weak. He's just being a beta here. He's refusing to just tell it like it is. And so instead he's trying to carefully walk Trump through it and, slowly guide him, and Trump's just like a bull in a china shop. No. Because if an election actually was stolen, yeah, of course you want to address that, and you want to fix that, and you want to, get the person who actually won in office and set up a system where this doesn't happen again. Trump's right about that. But the thing is, the election wasn't stolen. It wasn't stolen. I mean, there's more reason to believe the 2000 election was stolen from Al Gore than this election was stolen from Donald Trump. Because in 2000, when you did the recount, no matter how you did the recount, after the fact, Gore ended up winning Florida, which means he would have won the election. So, the fact that he's still harping away on this now, and he's factually wrong, And no Republican could just stand up to him and be like, you're fucking wrong. I guess the only one who does it is like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. I guess they're the only ones who do it. And on that front, they're correct. But it's also hilarious because Liz Cheney is the daughter of Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney was part of the 2000 election where indeed Al Gore did kind of win it, but they ended up taking it from him. So it's funny that she is the one who's leading the charge on that. But like, they're terrible. They're terrible for their own reasons. They're like, their voting record is basically totally with Trump, as the one area they disagree with Trump is like, hey, you lost the election. But anyway, I digress from that. Stuart is so sad.
Let me talk to you about Mike Pence, your former vice president. He says he will run in 2024, even if you run. Looks to me like a split party, Mr. President.
No, that's okay if he ran.
Yeah, I don't... What do you mean a split party? Dog, that's like 80-20 at best for Mike Pence. At best.
I mean, I wouldn't be concerned with that. That's fine. I don't think he said that, actually, but he may say that. And I understand that. People are very disappointed in Mike. And
but there is a split in the party.
The reason why Trump says people are very disappointed in Mike is because the one thing he did with integrity was to say, I'm not going to overturn the election for you. I'm not going to try to overturn the election. We lost. And he's like, people are very disappointed in Mike because he didn't want to overthrow democracy completely in this country. Trump is, he's so shitty.
And he ran. I don't think that would be a problem.
There is a split between those who want you to go forward and be the nominee and those who don't. I mean, it is a split party.
Well, I think if you look at the polls, I'm leading by a tremendous amount. I had a 98% approval rating of the Republican Party.
It definitely wasn't that high, but it's probably about 90%. I mean, DeSantis is the only real, at this moment, the only real competition to Trump. And they're probably trying to find a way to work out something behind the scenes with him so he doesn't run. And I don't know if DeSantis would risk it if Trump is in, because he would have a hard balancing act to do. You can't be too pro-Trump, you can't be too anti-Trump. You have to be like Glenn Youngkin and sort of walk that line perfectly. And Trump is going to come for your jugular if you're running against him. So, is it a split party? If you consider 80-20 a split, then sure, but Trump is way ahead of Pence, for sure.
We created the greatest economy ever that you reported on for a long time.
Right, my ass. Anyway, there you have it. It's so sad watching people try to talk Trump down off the ledge because it's not, number one, it's not going to work. Number two, you just look like a cuck because you're refusing to be honest and upfront with what the truth is. So, Stuart Varney, sad effort, man, sad effort. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.